Funny. Oh,
You made it.
I got out surgeon. Yeah. You don't hear that? No. It's just in my head. Michelle hears it too. You hear it too, Karen. It's more of a mechanical. But you hear
It's a high pitch.
it.
Only women can hear it.
I was gonna say, I can't hear it. I can hear like a furnace running, but.
See if that, what is that? Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
That's why I keep the bag.
Sewer stuff?
You can have it.
No, I'm good. I'm totally. Don't need more paperwork. Kindling.
Oh.
Section of the board order. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Hudson,
Here.
Embry, Commissioner Jazinski, Commissioner Engler, Commissioner Marino, Commissioner Swaney, Commissioner Holt. All here, Mr. Commissioner, except for Commissioner Embry and Commissioner Marino.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioners Embry and Marino are joining us online. They weren't able to make it here. And I'd just like to remind those gentlemen that you, according to the Open Meetings Act, cannot participate in the meeting. You can certainly speak during public comment. So with that, bring us to approval of the agenda. We'll start out with general public comment. We have a report from the Isabella County Administrator Controller. We have no appointments to boards or commissions. And then committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman, and we're all present.
Yeah. Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set. Your chair.
Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll have general public comment again and then announcements and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Jelazinski.
Support Swaney.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we have an agenda. Brings us to general public comment. Is there anyone for general public comment? All right, seeing no one for general public comment, we'll get right into it. Presentation from Isabella County Administrator Controller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a couple of updates for the board tonight. Let you know that along with equalization, several departments have joined us and are operating at 510 West Pickard. That is administration, equalization, MSU extension, registered deeds, drain commissioner, and treasurer's office. I don't think I missed anyone, Michelle. You're there quite a bit, but not operating from there. And then just a couple doors down at 614 West Pickard, Parks and Recreation and Community Development will join facilities there likely this week. So we're super excited to be operating from our new temporary locations. Let's talk about asbestos in the county building. We did wrap up the closing conference with MIOSHA last week on the asbestos, and we had no violations, no recommendations from MIOSHA. We handled everything very, very well, and timely. Last time I made a report, I did let you know that we had an RFP out for architectural and engineering services for the rebuild of the county building. That was due December 28th, and we had 2 firms that joined us on the mandatory pre-bid meeting and walked through the building. Those were the only 2 firms then that could submit a successful proposal, if you will, and neither firm chose to bid. So we received no bids from architectural and engineering firms for the rebuild. Our procurement policy does state that we can procure professional services through non-competitive means. So even though we did our due diligence and put out an RFP, we don't have to go that route for professional services. I called our friend Miklos Ferber, who's helping us on the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility project as a pro bono consultant, and asked him about a local firm that he might suggest. The firm Goudreau Associates is down on Main Street in Mount Pleasant, and they recently worked with Mr. Ferber on the soup kitchen renovation, and he spoke very highly of them. I did reach out to them, and I've had an initial meeting with them, and they are preparing a proposal for us to consider. They have a thoughtful process in mind, and I think they're willing to work with us. So I'm hopeful that their proposal is agreeable to us. Well, update on that. I will say opioid suits are still continuing. There's one ongoing right now with Rite Aid that is moving forward, and that same law firm, Whites in Luxembourg, will take us forward with that suit as well. Another class action. Our opioid dollars will probably soon increase. And the other big story is the 2.5 mil general operating levy millage request that the county is seeking. We've had a lot happening in that regard, a lot of county leadership, department heads, elected officials meeting to come up with frequently asked questions to publish, to come up with flyers and mailers to get out. I am happy to report that the millage webpage, I believe, is now live with those FAQs up on the county site. So it's facts, right? There's nothing that suggests a way you should vote. It's all facts about how we got here and what it's for, and general fund and our history with that. We do have some opportunities coming up to discuss the facts behind the millage request, and we are on the agenda for a few upcoming meetings. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. we're on the agenda for the Isabella County chapter of the Michigan Townships Association. That meeting will take place at Deerfield Township Hall, since they're not meeting in our county building currently. I'm hoping that several Several commissioners will show up in support, hoping department heads electeds would show up in support of our presentation on the millage levy. Also, next Monday, I'm happy to report, I just heard back from City Manager Aaron DeSense with the City of Mount Pleasant, and we are on the city agenda for next Monday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. And lastly, on the agenda for the February 21st Council of Governments meeting, I'm not sure of the location of that yet, but I will definitely update you before that meeting. Definitely some good opportunities, great venues to not only tell our story, but have our story be retold by those in attendance. So hoping you can attend. Are there any questions for me?
Questions, Administrator Frost? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That brings us down to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Chairman, the first item is consider ratifying and placing on file the December 15, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $233,507.63. The December 22nd, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $166,232.80. The December 29th, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $130,899.99. The January 5th, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $440,541.15, and the adjustment list dated January 11th, 2024. So we've had a number of times to be able to look at this, and certainly this is one way that we can share any questions among us in terms of the four lists and the adjustment list. Starting with the December 15th, as I usually say, a lot of these are things that we're very familiar with, that we pay in constantly. Their contracts, such as the first payment for the audit. We have the asbestos service and so on. But the one item that stands out in that list on the December 15th is, I was kind of surprised to see the Sagno-Chippewa Indian Tribe. It's only a small payment of $6,881.78, a tax tribunal lower value. And I'm wondering how that works in. Usually we've seen that with apartments or commercial venues, but I've never seen the tribe there. Of course, Mr. Pickens, Treasurer Pickens is not here to answer that question, but maybe could follow up.
I certainly will, because it's curious to me, because I would have thought if it was their property, it wouldn't be on our tax roll, it would be in tribal land. So that is quite confusing. I will absolutely follow up on that.
Yes.
Good question. I was wondering about the, and these, I may have missed these in the past, but the 2023 forfeiture searches, you know, the treasurer, it says first installment, it's $5,000. Am I on the right page?
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I am not sure what we're paying $5,000 for.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably a contractual agreement that we have with that firm to review the records to find out who we have in terms of forfeiture, Madam Administrator.
No, I know sometimes that the treasurer contracts for noticing, but I don't know that Benford Land Services is one of those. I'm gonna look up and see if I can find more information for you guys. Benford. We should be able to pull it. Then he uses quite often. The title searches. So it is first installment for tax forfeiture searches for 2023. It is title search work for the treasurer's office. And It is being charged to the 519 fund, which is PA 123, which is the forfeiture fund. His forfeiture sales fund, not delinquent tax revolving fund.
So it's probably reviewing that, make sure we have corrected addresses and so on, so that notices go out to the proper people.
I would think so. Treasurer Pickens, I guarantee, could do a lot better job of explaining it, but that,
Title
you know,
work for-
yeah, following the invoices, that's what it's for.
Any other questions on the December 15th invoice list or any of the bills in the body of the report? Moving on then to the December 22nd. Again, we have public defender appointments. We have day treatment for childcare. Again, all the items on here are very familiar to us. Repeat pretty much on a monthly basis. Any questions on the December 22nd list? All right, moving on to the December 29th list. There's only a few here. That's one of the smaller ones, just under 131,000. But again, it's the first quarter payment for cooperative Michigan State University Extension. We got Preston Community Services for equalization. We have our $5,000 annual airport dues, and then public defender and fourth quarter remonumentation through the register of deeds. Again, very familiar items for us. Any questions on any of those bills or any of them in the body of the report? Moving on to the January 5th. We have a few more dollars involved with this one, 440,000 plus change. We have a couple of payments to hats bi-weekly. For whatever reason, must have missed the payment or we're getting caught up. On the rest of them, again, it's there's some kind of new ones because we're paying the bills for moving items out of the county building into storage and getting ready for making sure that we're able to operate in our new temporary facility.
Michelle. Sorry.
Ed? Do you have a question about one of the
No,
bills? Okay.
I need some extra support.
Again, the rest of them are, again, pretty familiar to us. Any questions on any of the larger bills or any of the bills in the body?
It's good to see the well is finally being repaired. It seemed like took a long time to get someone to do that. Since we paid the bill, I assume it's finished
Yes, sir.
over at Lake Isabella.
Finally getting that done.
Yeah,
Moving on to the adjustment list. Again, these are ones that you wouldn't find in the invoice list because they were added late, and that's usually to take advantage of a discount or to avoid a late fee. Sometimes there are bills that are corrected because of sales tax inclusion and so on. I do have a question on the December 15th adjustments, and it's the last one, integrated architecture. I see the invoice was removed due to incorrect amount. I was thinking that there'd be an adjustment so that there would be some kind of payment going out. And I did check the bills for the next time, and I thought maybe it'll be there, but I don't see it anyplace, so.
I think that they have not sent us a revised one yet.
Correction.
I believe that Melissa is still working with them on that. Yes, sir. Good catch.
Okay. And that's, again, on the next page for December 29th, it's the Ovis elevator that was removed due to incorrect billing. I suspect we haven't received their new billing yet. Any questions about any of the other adjustments on here? Then we'll move these to tonight's meeting for final approval. The next item. Consider approving the agreement for animal shelter services between the Humane Animal Treatment Society HATS and Isabella County effective January 1st, 2024, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So we did get some information. Do we have Amanda Tellison here, the executive director, or anybody representing HATS?
I do believe Amanda
Yes.
is on the Zoom, yes. Thanks for
Hello.
joining, Amanda.
So in the actual contract, I know we extended the old one by a month or two so that this could be come up. And the bottom line is there's no change in the cost of the basic contract, and there were some changes that maybe, Amanda, you'd like to explain to us.
Yeah, so when some of our CATS representatives, me and a couple of our board members met with Nicole and Tobin and Mike Main, we basically went through everything on the contract and discussed mostly a few things that just changed some operational matters. So nothing groundbreaking. The biggest changes were just some details in updating the open hours on here that were just out of date, clarifying some details of how we're recording some animal behaviors, how things, emergencies are reported to animal control or not necessarily emergencies, but just law enforcement matters. Let's see, how paperwork is remitted between me and the county and picked up weekly, and some clarification on repairs and HATS being responsible for some of the new fixtures we've installed. So I can go into more detail on any of those things, but I will say that they're pretty minor clarification things that we discussed and just made a little bit more clear in the contract. But other than that, nothing that significantly changes either role really on the county's part or our part significantly.
Thank you. I do have a question. I know I put out live traps, catch a lot of skunks and raccoons, and I think those are called nuisance animals now, just recently designated that by the DNR. But every once in a while, I'll get a feral cat in. And I brought a feral cat over to your facility, and it was declined to be taken. And so I was watching your presentation before the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee, and I didn't realize that you're a no-kill facility. And so I suspect, I was thinking at the time you just had everything full and you couldn't have the capacity to take another animal. But I'm thinking there's a lot of people that have problems with these feral cats that we need to have some way to handle those, and maybe HATS isn't the way to go. I know we have an animal control officer, but what do you do with these animals?
So in regards to feral cats, meaning cats that are not socialized with people, wild, can't be safely handled, animal control has never been responsible for picking them up. They've always been solely focused on dogs. So there's never really been any involvement there. Once, when HATS became involved, it's changed throughout the years and how we've handled that. We generally have a lot of issue housing them on site at the shelter, as do most shelters. Have moved to not intaking feral cats because one, we can't handle them. They're not accustomed to humans. They're fractious. They're dangerous. We might get bit. They're not happy. They want to be outside. So how we try to handle that, and depending on who you spoke to that day, I'm not sure what resources that you may have been given or not. We try to refer people to our spay and neuter clinic to fix them and re-release them. So because they're not candidates for adoption, we try to focus our efforts on taking in the animals that, one, need immediate shelter or care because they're sick or injured or whatever the case may be that's making it an urgent situation, or animals that are accustomed to indoor living. And those types of animals are prioritized. When it comes to ferals, like I said, we try to route people to what's more referred to as trap, neuter, return, meaning you got a cat in your trap, then you'd move on to fixing the cat to prevent additional cats. And then you just return the cat to where they are, where they're accustomed to living. And usually the people that have complaints about the cats, most of those complaints are related to mating behaviors. And once they're fixed, a lot of that tends to be reduced. Because I know some people don't want the cat back at where they were, but a lot of the issues they have tend to go down once they're not trying to find mates and fight and mark and all those things. So every situation is unique and kind of how we handle that, but we do spay and neuter feral cats at our clinic. We spay and neuter thousands of cats every year. We even have programs to do them for free for Isabella County residents. So that's where we've shifted that focus, is to try to route them through our clinic rather than through the shelter where we can't handle them. I could go on for a long time on that, but that's kind of in a nutshell.
Okay, well, I'm not sure that's a good solution for the people that are having to deal with feral cats, and they are killers of game birds, and I always watch them when I eat my bird feeder. They're waiting there to pounce. So, but I thank you. Yes.
I have a comment. Amanda, you won't take the skunks at Jerry Traps either, will you?
No, and neither will your animal control officer.
Okay.
No, thank
No,
you.
seriously, the negotiation was good. I mean, the folks were very mindful of our concerns. We were mindful of theirs. It was a good process. And we came to an agreement. Hats was mindful of the county's financial situation and could have really used an increase in the contract price, I think, but we've got a 3-year extension for no increase in price, and we really appreciate that. And I will say too, I've said this before, but the shelter, you do an amazing job out there. I've toured a couple times recently. And do you know off the top of your head how many spay and neuters you do out there? It's an amazing number of.
Yeah, so like, for example, actually I was just looking at the numbers from last year. So yeah, I was actually looking at just some of the shelter reports too. So last year, for example, our intakes keep going up too. Overall total for cats and dogs last year in the shelter, we took in 936 animals. And then in our clinic, it can vary. It's usually give or take right around 2,000 surgeries a year, but we did 1,728 last year. And that is a combination of public and shelter animals. But public numbers outweigh shelter. So it's still predominantly residents we're providing services for.
Yeah, great. That's a great service. Thank you.
Yeah, and go ahead, Commissioner Engler.
Just a real, yeah, I mean, well, you've already talked once, so I'm gonna. No, and I do not want, and you did not offer the cats to me, so that's good. So, hi, Amanda, Frank Engler here. Just a little bit of clarification and stuff. We got the animal shelter is kind of new to the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee because the sheriff took over it. We got the agenda item where we're going to talk about the discontinuation of that. Is that an internal decision, or is that with this contract that we're talking at now, are they connected, I guess, is what I'm asking?
Oh, so for the $15 adoption fee, well, Nicole might be able to speak to that a little bit and why it's separate.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason it's separate, I guess, is because and I remember calling Chairman Hope to say, what committee do we send this to? I brought forward the HATS contract with the staff report because there's no other department that's gonna bring forward the Humane Animal Treatment Society contract, right? That comes from admin. We handled the negotiations. So I brought that forward through the finance committee that we're on right now. At the same time, during the negotiations, we had talked about that there was no increase in compensation to hats from the county in the 3-year agreement. And during those negotiations, it kind of came about of, well, could we negotiate away the $15 per animal adoption fee? So this negotiating committee has no authority to do that. The full board set that fee. The full board has to consider to do away with that fee.
Yeah,
And I wrote the staff report and brought it forward. So I said, well, the issue of the contracts going through finance, but the issue of animal control in your bylaws, those committees have jurisdictions. Animal control is under the jurisdiction of criminal justice. Animal shelter wasn't ever distinguished because it used to be all one.
I'm not asking the question on that. I'm just wondering if this agreement, if it has to do with, if this item has to do with item 3, because we're gonna pass this contract first, and then we're gonna go back and change the fee agreement and criminal justice. So I was just asking if
Not
this.
tie-barred. They are not
Question.
tie-barred. One can happen without the other, either way.
That was my question. So
Sorry for going into a tirade about
that's okay.
why we send things to certain committees.
I was just kind of a little bit confused if we did one thing and we did something another, would the other one affect the other ones? Okay.
To be that they're both coming forward at the same meeting, that certainly the contract can go forward without the fee being addressed, and certainly you could choose not to forward the contract and adjust the fee. I wouldn't recommend that. Not tie-barred.
That was the only question.
Are there other questions or comments? Amanda, thank you. Your team does a tremendous job. As many times as I've driven by the place, it's always looking sharp and clean, and watching your volunteers out there walking the animals in the summertime. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Then we'll move this item to tonight's regular meeting. With that, Mr. Chairman, the Finance Administration Committee has done its work for the night. for
Thank
this,
you.
Work session.
Vice Chairman Jelizinski, and that would bring us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Mr. Chairman, first up, we have consider approving the fiscal year 2022 state and local cybersecurity grant program, local consent agreement, and authorize the board chairman to sign the same. And I believe we have Director Griffiths online, and that is the correct date, 2022. So we always go through this. So Director Griffiths, a no-cost grant application. So
That's exactly right, Commissioner. No cost grant. This allows the state to apply for it on our behalf, and hopefully we'll be passed through some money. Approximately $4,775,415 will be allocated towards endpoint detection and response software, cybersecurity assessments for incident response planning and training activities with no cost to the local counties in Michigan. So it'll be a great opportunity for many counties, ours included, to take advantage of this. This gives us permission to do it. It has been reviewed by legal, and I'd like to just move forward with your permission.
any questions? Pretty straightforward. Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's work session or business meeting.
All right, thank you, Director.
Yep.
Item number 2, consider authorizing the Isabella County Public Defender to fill the position of misdemeanor level assistant public defender at a higher than starting rate based upon qualifications of the proposed new hire. All right, we have Director Thomas Hausman to fill us in on this potential hire.
Good afternoon. I should start out by saying that this request comes at no additional cost from our grant. Anywhere. This is a position, it's not a budget adjustment, not a line item transfer or anything like that. When we do our grant process in the spring, our grant every year is due at the end of April. And when we start out that process, one of the things we always do is work with HR at the county to get everyone's salaries and step increases and potential COLA increases all set in April so that we can submit them to the to MIDC for our grant. And so we did that last year in April. And we had an attorney on our staff who was at the level, it's 15.5 on the wage scale. And he was with us since December of 2019. He left to take another opportunity in September of this year. And so we had that salary and fringe benefit amount sitting there unused. And so we interviewed a candidate that had 8 years of experience as a public defender. Something that frankly in our office would probably put him at third in line with the most experience. And was a fantastic candidate. So I think that, you know, I've never had to make this request before in the history of our office. But I think it's something that's important and able to attract someone with this level of experience into this position. As I stated, it's already in our budget. It has an effect on our indirect costs that we receive from MIDC. Our indirect cost budget line item equates to 10% every quarter of salary and fringe benefits. So hiring somebody in at a lower rate than what we already had budgeted can impact that indirect number. Arguably not very much. The starting salary for that position is $60,445.71. We're asking to start that person at the fourth or fifth step on the wage scale, which will be $70,712.93. I do have copies of the county wage scale if anybody is interested. So that's essentially what we're asking, is to be able to bring somebody in with that level of experience at a higher than the starting wage.
Yeah, I know we've had quite a discussion on this during committee meeting. And at that time, I was actually considering not passing this through to this committee, and I was going to let my other commissioners decide on this. It's not that I agree, especially since you're under budget on there. I'm just concerned about legacy costs and what we're going through right now as far as asking for an increase when we're possibly looking at having to lay people off this time. I know I suggested maybe some other options as bonuses and stuff, or bring this back later at a more favorable time. But like I said, right now I'm trying to vote against this when it goes to the main meeting, which I would like not to do. But I guess I'm on this decision. I was going to wait to see what some of my other commissioners felt on this.
Sure.
I guess I'm concerned over the timing. We're right on top of a 2.5 millage request, and I don't think the timing is really good. And if that request fails and at the end of February, we're going to have to make some drastic cuts through the county, cuts that we don't want to make. It's going to affect people's lives, and it's particularly going to impact the non-mandated services, which when you look at where those dollars can be cut, they're very specific. And I'm just wondering, you know, if the millage fails, are we going to have fewer law enforcement officers out there that are going to be not prosecuting, but apprehending violators of the law or of statutes? And if that occurs, is the caseload going to drop for not only public defenders, but also the prosecuting attorney, the court caseload? I know we're going through this wage study right now. And I know you've got the budget, you've got the state that reimburses it, but it seems like there is this factor of non-reimbursable mandates.
Well, and I think there's an interesting distinction there, because it's not a reimbursement grant. They give us the money up front. So
Point I'm trying to make though is you're not out there all by yourself. There's a we make a decision for the public defender's office, and then we have a request from the prosecuting attorney who's having a difficulty finding attorneys for his office too. And it just seems like it mushrooms. And I brought up with the county administrator, I was part of the committee that created the public defender's office, and I think we did the right thing at the time. But with the standards that have come up and the wages, we were having a hard time getting contractual attorneys back then. And maybe it's still the case. I don't know how you're going out to seek, but I'm thinking the wages have gone up significantly, and it seems like there should be attorneys out there that are willing to step in and maybe take on some of this workload. Maybe we're at where we have the current plan at 75-25 contractual, 75% in-house. Maybe we need to take a look at 50-50. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know your department. I think you've run it very well, but trying to be as transparent and fiscally conservative as possible, it's just something I think we need to look at. I'm not inclined to say yes tonight, only because of those concerns.
And there's a couple of things, if I may respond. Number one is, going back to, I guess the first point is that, making this request for myself then impacts the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office right now on the county website has the same job posted, starting at the top end of this wage scale. Our same position in our office is posted, similar to the exact same lowest level assistant. Theirs is posted at the top end, whereas ours is posted at the bottom end. So arguably, we could get into that situation where they do have a candidate, they're going to start them out arguably $13,000 more than what we're able to. So I mean, there's that fear in there as well. We do have this interesting dichotomy between the office and the contract. The contract attorneys make more money than the staff attorneys. There's two mainstays on the contract. We do struggle with getting attorneys on the contract. Without naming names, I mean, last year in 2023, one made $126,383. The other one made $112,000. So arguably, we could say no to this candidate, but I could tell him, hey, we have a spot on the contract for you. And he could make arguably more than the position that I would like to provide him. Because he could join the contract. We need those attorneys as well. When we did, to go to the next point with the original feasibility study, there were two different options presented in that feasibility study. It was the 75-25 split and a 50-50 split. And I know at committee meetings, there was talk about splitting it to 25 in-house and 75 out. And we simply don't have the numbers for it. By creating the public defender's office, we created something that does draw attorneys in to work for us. I commute from Midland. We have another attorney in the office that commutes from Midland. We have one that commutes from Mecosta County. We have another one that commutes from Gladwin County, because we offer something different. All of our surrounding counties are all contract based, and they all pay the same. They're all paying $120 an hour for misdemeanors, $135 an hour for felonies, and $150 an hour for life offenses. So without the public defender's office, there's nothing that separates us from those other counties. And so to do either a reverse split or to say, we want to go back to a contract-based system, it'd be hard to find the numbers of attorneys that would want to participate in that system. Because there wouldn't be anything that separates us from the other counties. On a contract-based system, I would stay in Midland because that would be the hourly rate. And I think it would be tough to find the numbers, because thinking about doing it 25 in-house and 75 on the contract, you'd arguably be looking at cutting the public defender staff by 5 attorneys. I think with the 50-50 split in the feasibility study, I believe there were 5 total attorneys envisioned in that plan. So to do 25 and 75, you're probably looking at cutting another 2. Obviously, that would impact support staff as well. But you know, we have something different here that draws the attorneys in that we can offer. You know, those other counties with the contract-based systems, they're not offering benefits. They're not offering any of those fringes. And that's what really separates us and is allowing us right now to have the numbers to have a proper indigent defense service.
I'm inclined to support this mainly because we've done it numerous times in the past for other departments, and I appreciate the commissioner's concerns about the timing of this and our financial situation, but this is paid for up front by the state of Michigan. So, you know, like you said, it might have a very minimal effect from the indirect costs, which is, I believe you said 10% of wages and benefits.
Every quarter, yes, every quarter it's 10% of wages and benefits that we get as indirect costs.
And you're talking about jumping this person up or this position about $10,000?
Correct.
That'd be about $100 a quarter or a year?
Every quarter it's 10%. When we do our finances every quarter, it's 10% of that quarter's salary and fringes.
Okay. And I mean, it could mean the difference between filling this position or not. And to me, I think we have a very good public defender office. We worked very hard to create that and staff it, and I think we need to continue in that vein. I will probably support this. Yes, sir.
And like I said, I would hate to see this to go to the general session and be voted down. Just because of the timing, I agree with everything he says. Like I said, I think the timing is bad as far as that, but the public defender's office is also under budget. So there's some of the options that they could do. We go to committee, voted down or voted up, or regardless. We voted down, then it's down. It sends a bad, just looks bad for him trying to get someone in there. Bonuses are, we talk about standard 6. Bonuses that can be considered part of wages. So, you know, we're in a kind of a little area here where we're going to go through February, finding out where our financial state is. You know, he's under budget. He could offer, you know, a longevity bonus, a signing bonus, get that salary up to where he wants to do it, but not do a legacy cost. Not put out that we're increasing wages when we're trying to look at cut wages, because he is under budget. They've been understaffed, so it's in the budget. I don't think it would affect the going into, you know, the grant agreement, because bonuses are considered part of it. But I just really think it's a bad time, and we need to, you know, last meeting we said no to a bunch of increases, and I'm sure there's going to be some more coming up here until we get our house in financial order. And, you know, I'm out there trying to sell a millage out there, and I'm getting railed over the rakes on everything. And so this is, you know, it's more of a perception. It's not that I don't agree with that, and I want to get that office filled. And I was on the committee with Jerry when we developed this, and hope you understand it's nothing in there, but we're looking at a bigger picture here and trying to solve a problem that we got coming forward. And that's my only thing. And I would hate for it to see it to go down, or even if put it in a committee for a week or a month to get it on there and you know, get a little bit creative as trying to get that person on there. But I'm probably still a no tonight, so.
But unless Commissioner Hutchinson wants to jump in first, I'll make comment on mine, I'm happy to.
Jump in.
I can make my comment first so that everybody's clarified. I'm in favor of supporting this. I think that it is ridiculous for this board to sit here and support our prosecuting attorney raises and trying to get those attorneys on and not support our public defender's office as well. Both of these departments serve our residents and are very important to this county. And I think that this board should take it very seriously of when we have someone filling an empty position, we need to fill it. And if we've got someone who's has 8 years experience, we should appropriately put a salary on them. And we've done that in the past, and we've jumped on it with other departments. And I've seen more questions for the public defender's office than I've seen for any other department. And the perception to me is that we don't support our public defender's office as well as we do our other department, the prosecuting attorney. That's what I see. I'm sorry if that rubs anybody wrong, but I think we need to sit here and think about supporting both departments. They both serve our residents and are very needed. The state has come through with funding to give us a strong public defender's office. I think it's something we need to maintain and show that our residents in the state that we're serious on helping the state support this effort for public defense of citizens. I think that it's also ridiculous to talk about, we can't, fund this when obviously we're looking at $400 to $1,000 in indirect costs for a public defender lawyer who's got 8 years experience as opposed to 0. So I feel strongly about this, and that's where I stand. I support it. Commissioner Hutchinson, would you like to follow that?
Mine's all about the timing. I agree with everything you just said. Need to maintain that. It's crucial. But it's a perception. With this coming down to our millage, I just wish we knew the magic thing and whether that's gonna pass, and if it doesn't, what do we look like? And I at this point have to think I would not be supportive of this because of it. We're gonna have bigger battles in the next year, 2 years, and not that I don't support what they're doing, because they are. And I'm down to it and make it right in the long run. I think that's the way we need to go.
All right, are there any further questions? We'll move this on to the regular session tonight.
Okay, last up on the agenda is consider approving the discontinuation of the $15 per animal adoption fee collected by Isabella County effective immediately. I think Amanda Tillison's still on there. We kind of got into this a little bit earlier. but basically that the $15 that goes to the county, it is costing them more to process that than the actual fee is worth. So it'll actually get rid of this fee. They'll actually be saving money. So I guess if you'd, Amanda, would you like to address anything more on that? But it's pretty, I think I'm pretty straightforward on that.
Yeah, so I think there's, as you said, there's a lot of, administrative time spent on our end as well as the county's end, reconciling the back and forth reimbursement and paperwork of this fee on every adoption alone. And it's just caused a lot of, just administrative hassle on both, my end as well as the ladies in the sheriff's office that I work with on reconciling all of that. It would save us all a significant amount of time. But with that, as was mentioned earlier, we are not going to be necessarily seeing an increase in our contracted amount this year, assuming the contract goes through as written. Yet we also have a significant increase in expenses, and after working through our budget yesterday, have a lot of expenses to cover that we have to figure out how we're going to cover this year. And removing this fee would allow us to retain that money. So for example, if we charge $50 on an adoption of the animal and the county takes 15 from that, we don't currently charge that 15 on top of our advertised adoption fees. That's included. So by removing that $15, we're just retaining that. The adoption fees stay exactly as they are. But we will potentially gain about $5,000 this year, or retain $5,000 instead of reimbursing that to the county, which would help cover our increase in expenses that we're going to see this year.
Hey, yes.
Say that this is a good proposal. It'll save hats and the county, as Amanda said, considerable admin time. So I definitely support this.
Okay, is there any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's business session. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
You gentlemen, and that brings us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Okay, our first item, consider approving the purchase of Bobcat S62 skid steer. Total cost of $10,931 to be covered by 2% funds from the fall of 2023 from Ellen's Equipment Incorporated, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Director?
Good afternoon. Glad to see everybody made it through the snowstorm. And as we continue to see, the roads can get better. And now we just have to worry about a flood next week. I shouldn't say that. We don't need that kind of negativity out of it. What I'm bringing forward is what I had discussed last year when we purchased the skidster, and that is to try to trade every year to be able to keep the retail value of that trade up as much as possible. And one of the biggest reasons that we continue to do that is not just the resale value, but also the warranty, which is one of the biggest issues to keep labor costs down on equipment maintenance. Every 2,000 where that cut line is on a purchase on a new piece of equipment. We run about 1,200 hours a year, between 12 and 1,500. If you go beyond that 1 year mark, that moves us over the warranty, which then if there's any significant maintenance that needs done on that piece of equipment, you're into possibly tens of thousands of dollars on equipment repair. So by trading this in, we've got an initial cost on the equipment of, the initial cost is $50,931. they're offering us $40,000 in trade, leaving a balance of $10,931, which we received 2% money this last fall. That will cover that expense. Taking no money out of the 24 budget year as far as maintenance or equipment cost is concerned. It would just be 2% funding to cover that cost. Questions?
Yeah, just a comment. When we were running the dairy, we traded our skid loader in every other year because it gets to a certain point where the downtime kind of kills you. In fact, when we're out there talking about the jail project, I said it's kind of the same thing, your maintenance, and it just doesn't make sense. You have to really, a new piece of equipment actually makes sense. So financially and the downtime, so.
This is such a valuable. Having that warranty and getting that warranty every year means a lot.
One of the things that I try to look at, and that's when it comes to equipment is concerned, I went to all the major equipment manufacturers to be able to try and get the best deal that we possibly can. My response back from John Deere and New Holland, which please understand, this Bobcat is actually coming from New Holland, but New Holland itself wasn't interested in doing a trade. They were looking more at the dollar figures that they would have inbound if we went over warranty and the maintenance on the equipment that they would cost. So they weren't interested in offering a reasonable amount of money for our trade. It was low enough that it was not even in consideration. And basically the same thing on John Deere. The salesman's quote off the record was, we've met our numbers for the year. We're fine. It's, like I say, that's an unacceptable in my eyes, trying to run a department on in the most efficient way possible. So.
Chairman, I have a question for you. Would this be an inappropriate time since Director Borton's sitting there to give a quick update on the excuse me, the material management plan update? We had some good news at the ad hoc committee, or would that be, since he's sitting there? It's up to your discretion, sir.
I think I'm always got ears for good news, so.
As it stands right now on material management planning, we are on the agenda for 2 counties. As far as getting letters of intent signed, one of them is next Tuesday at 9 a.m. in Gladwin County. The one after that is Ogama County, which is February 1st at 9 a.m. As it stands right now, Commissioner Embry, Director Nieport, and myself will be attending the Ogama one. I have not heard back on what availability is for next Tuesday's meeting in Gladwin, but I will certainly be attending that one. We have received letters signed with letter of intent from it is Osceola County has already signed and sent us that letter. We have the indication that Gratiot County will be pushing that through their Board of Commission. And when we go back to these counties again, that was a conversation that I just had with my operations supervisor. And that's that we will have an ILA in hand to also be able to present at them Board of Commissioner meetings to see whether we can possibly get them ILAs signed rather than just of a letter of intent. If there is that strong of an interest on at least on 4 or 5 different counties at this point. So what that means for Isabella County is that we are sure that I can't guarantee, but very soon I will be able to guarantee that I expect that very shortly we'll have at least 3 letters of intent signed. which means that we are certainly going to have partners in material management planning moving forward. I expect that that list will continue from there. And I would hope that, you know, it moves beyond, what we've had in our meeting, our work group. At this point, conversation has been that we expect at least 5, and I expect it to expand beyond that as well. So, which is great news for us. Being able to work on a larger scale, on material management planning, and continues to push the idea of where, or why, the expansion on the facility, comes so much more into play. Even though I understand the financial situation of the county, we are continuing to work towards grant money and other funding sources, and we'll continue to work towards that.
It's good news. Thank you.
Any other questions? That being said, we'll move this to tonight's meeting. You're welcome. Second item, consider approving the MySale partner agreement for the Union Township buy-up 6-inch resolution imagery with the state of Michigan through the Department of Technology Management and Budget Center to share solutions and authorize the board chair to sign this thing.
Hi there, good evening, afternoon, evening. So back in 2019, we entered into with the state of Michigan a technical term here. They called it a data exchange agreement. The data exchange agreement was with the state of Michigan, Department of Management and Budget, the Center for Shared Solutions. That's where their GIS or their data and technology comes from. This agreement provided for us imagery or photography flights as the state as they move through the state collecting this data, they would share it with us. In turn, we share some of our data back with them. So there's a $0 cost exchange for this data. The data they provide to us on the orthophotography flight is 12-inch resolution, basically meaning anything 12-inch square on the ground you should be able to see from this flight. We offer buy-ups. Back in 2019 as well in 2015, both Union Township and the city of Mount Pleasant had engaged some conversations with us about expanding that or buying up a better resolution, 6-inch, 3-inch resolution type data. That data is more readily utilized in urbanized areas where we have manhole covers and those types of things that they need to see on the surface. Union Township has expressed interest in this flight that is coming with our partnership agreement this spring through the MySale program. We will receive our 12-inch data for free. But because it's our partnership with the state of Michigan, Union Township needs to buy up through us. So I reached out to Union Township. Manager Stool Dryer got back to me and said they would like to purchase up to the 6-inch resolution data, and they're paying that full cost, $9,600. They're paying that full cost. So we're essentially just sort of a pass-through for them because we are the partner with the agreement. State of Michigan requires us to sign this document, the agreement document, to ensure that we're going to purchase this data from them. So tonight, I'm just simply asking for a chairman's signature on the document so that we can move this to the state of Michigan by their February 1st deadline. And then I will go ahead and invoice Union Township that $9,600. And we'll hold that money until the flight takes place in the spring. And then we will go ahead and pay that and receive the data hopefully this fall. So essentially today, I'm just asking for a chairman's signature on a partnership agreement.
It's amazing. Just from 12 to 6. We're shooting these pictures on a daily
Yeah.
So when we go online on the county site to community development, the imagery, is that, that'll be the updated imagery that'd be there?
Yeah, exactly. So what we've done over the years is All of our data is out there. So we have a data set. I think the first flight we flew was in 09, I want to say. Then we had a flight in 15, had a flight in 16. I think we had the 20 flight, and then we had some other data in 21. All that data is out there. We put the most relevant data as the default, but if you go into the fetch engine, you're able to go into orthophotography, toggle it open, and you can switch between photographies. You can turn multiple photographies on and swipe across the screen and see what's underneath that. So you can see change actually that took place between the flights. So we provide all of that data out on that free. Yeah, there's no charge for it. It's not free to us. We pay for the service, but it's free to the public to utilize that data and information.
Is that the same imagery that would be appearing like on Google Earth and some of the other search?
No, I mean, it is imagery like that, but much higher resolution. Google Earth isn't interested in 12-inch or 6-inch resolution data. They just need to show a pretty picture on the ground. That data that Google flies typically puts out there is typically satellite driven, and it's typically changed quite frequently, but it's somewhat frequently changed, and it's typically leaf on. We look for leaf off data. That's why we fly in the spring, because we want to be able to see below the canopy. We need to see through it. So for example, Union Township or the city or the CMU, they've got trees that cover some of their walkways and their paths and their manhole covers. We need to be able to see through that tree. So same type of imagery, but a much higher detailed imagery that we get for our data.
Thank you.
Any other questions? With that being said, we'll move that on to tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, consider approving resolution 2024-02 addressing Wademan Mill Pond lake level expenses and authorize board chair to sign the same. Do we have Director Willoughby here?
I see. I know in committee, Drain Commissioner Willoughby let us know that, he was responsible not only for setting the level, I thought, but also for maintenance. The Wademan Mill Pond thing. He didn't say where the money would come currently, but the resolution talks about a special assessment district being created to basically reimburse the county for the cost. I think it would have to come out of the county's general fund first, and then unless we had a account set up specifically for this being.
In this resolution.
I have a question. I'm just thinking about the Gladwin Midland dam failures, and I know typically the courts will, you petition the courts and they'll set the lake level in conjunction with the Drain Commission office. And I don't know if there's any liability for the county on, does the county own the dam or the control structure? And if that fails, is there protection for the county?
Well, it was one of the questions that was brought up. One of the questions that was brought up in committee, because during our annual property and liability insurance renewal, that's a question that's posed to the drain office is, are we responsible for maintenance or a replacement of any of those dam structures? MMRMA did recently add dam coverage. I think it was before those incidents, but certainly questions like that lead to coverages like that. So we're trying to understand from Drain Commissioner Willoughby what the extent of our responsibility is, because in years past, we've informed MMRMA that no, we don't own those. No, we're not responsible for maintenance. But clearly here's a resolution saying we are responsible for this one. I am texting Bob to see if he is maybe going to hop
That
on
was
and
one
join
of the
us.
answers to questions we had. We want.
Yes, yes.
Well, I know the courts get involved in setting the lake levels too, and I just don't know how they interact with the drain commission office. I suppose if the judge, you go through a court proceeding and the judge makes a decision, no choice but to follow the decision, but just like to have a better understanding of that.
Felt like he told us in committee that this level was set. On this one, that the level wasn't going anywhere, so it wasn't about setting it, but it clearly does, the resolution does, say that the expenses shall be reimbursed by a lake level special assessment district. Well, it doesn't set up the special assessment district. That's something that the drain office would have to do. This resolution just says the expenses shall be reimbursed by that assessment district.
Wonder if this is something we should take on tonight or wait till we get the drain commission office to.
Well, with the, I mean, I think we can take it. But it's again. The $10,000. I mean, we're gonna recover that and. Like you're saying, I don't think we have to answer this question. But I would feel more comfortable getting the answer that we.
Yeah, I mean, costs are to be determined, potentially funded through Saginaw, but there's a lot not.
Not answered. I mean, that's, we said that the 2% money and, where we're going with it and those answers aren't there.
And that's not in the resolution either, like
Yeah.
even that possibility, it says it shall be paid in a different manner than that.
I remember he did say in committee that there was no special assessment district set up at the time because the tribe paid for the dam itself. I think is what he said. But yeah, a lot of unanswered questions still.
I think he had to go back to the townships and get that set up before we can move on. So my thinking that we would just put this off if that's okay with you.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Next item, consider approving the DBA name for the account with Evelyn Incorporated from Isabel County to Isabel County Parks and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Director Alessis.
Hello. So this is just a straightforward name change request for, so in 2022, a contract was approved by the board with Camus Inc. as our online camping reservation system. And when that contract was entered, we also had to secure a credit card processing company. And so an agreement was approved with Elevon Inc. So just so that everybody understands, they process the credit card transactions that happen through our online camping reservation system. So what we discovered last year with that full season of utilizing that system was that some folks, when they were getting their credit card statement, they were seeing Isabella County and not sure where that was coming from, and they were disputing the charge, which then staff to go through this process of extra paperwork and extra phone calls and showing, receipts and check-in forms to prove that, yes, they camped and yes, we're supposed to be getting this money. And then waiting for the response from the credit card company to collect those fees. Obviously not the most efficient way to do business. So We worked with Elevon to try to come up with a solution to that. And after they worked all of the possible options on their end, we pretty much came down to we need to change the name so that when they get their credit card statement, it appears as Isabella County Parks. And that way they should know this was for either a vehicle pass or my camping reservation, and it would just trigger that recognition. So the form that's attached, we've looked it over in depth. There's nothing in here that changes our agreement, our fee structure, our contract with Elevon. All this will do is change our name as it appears on a credit card statement from Isabella County to Isabella County Parks. So we just need to submit this signed form in order for that to happen.
Gonna just free up a lot of time for the workers.
Yeah, and hopefully a little less confusion for our park users as well.
This makes a lot of sense. Just as a kind of a side note, the Camus Inc. system, are you having good luck with that? Is that working pretty well?
It's been working really well. I think that the parks admin staff are extremely happy with it. I think users are pretty happy with it. Learned is that they're extremely responsive to any customer service needs from us or from the community. So it's kind of a fluid situation where they're always making adjustments and adaptations to make it a better system. So really happy with where it's at right now.
Good, good. I know the state of Michigan uses it for their parks. I've used it. I found it really easy to use, really good system, so.
Yeah, I think there's some other neighboring counties who are moving towards using that system as well. So it's catching on throughout the state.
Okay.
Questions? Without that. And our next item, and consider approving the resolution 2024-01, adopting the 2024 to 2028 Isabel County Recreation Master Plan, and authorize the board chair to sign.
So Commissioner Engler and Commissioner Hutchinson have kind of gone more in depth with this plan at the Parks Commission meeting. So they've had a good look at it already. But I want to kind of give a brief overview. This is an 82-page document, so I'm going to just give a little bit of a context of why it's critical for our department, and then give you a little bit of what's in the plan, and then answer any questions. So the previous plan expired December 31st of 2023. And so for continuity of operations, we obviously want to have a current plan. That's important in itself. But then also to remain eligible for grants from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, we have to have a 5-year recreation master plan approved by the DNR. It has to be submitted by February 1st. Just since I've started, we've received the $319,000 Spark grant. We were able to close on the Meridian acquisition with $30,000 of that being funded by the DNR. So, I've been here since July, and that's over $400,000 of funding that's already been realized because we have one of these plans in place with the DNR. So obviously, it's a pretty critical piece. And I think if you look at the history of this department, you'll see that it's been very impactful throughout history. So basically, the process for this was back in August, we put out a public input survey. There was a PDF format and there was an electronic format, collected actually close to 200 responses from citizens of Isabella County. Then we kind of worked those responses into some goals and objectives. We had PM Blau, which is a consultant firm, work with us on looking at ADA assessments at all of the park facilities, as well as working on us with what are the DNR guidelines, what can we take from our survey results and put into an action program. And then this plan has been out for public review for over 30 days. And the public has had opportunities to give additional input. So we're trying to take their responses into account as we put all this together. So the plan itself, it gives a good kind of bit of demographics about the county. It really dives into our administrative structure and how we run the Parks Department. There's a good recreation inventory for our facilities and then the other facilities offered in the county. And then it gets into the meat of the plan, which is kind of accessibility assessments of all the parks, as well as our planning process of the plan, our goals and objectives for the next 5 years, and our action program. So looking at the goals and objectives, they're very broad. And that's intentional so that we don't limit ourselves to what we can do and what we can apply for and what we can get funding for. The gist of that is that we want to improve our existing recreation facilities. We want to add recreation facilities where it's appropriate. We want to enhance our ADA accessibility or even universal accessibility. And I think it's important to note that I think goal number 6 in the plan is actually all about financial stability of the department. So keeping our millage renewal and looking at new sources of revenue and seeing what works for us for long-term financial stability. So then those goals lead into the action program, which is kind of chock full of projects that are both, they kind of run the gamut from this would be amazing if this happened, but the likelihood of it happening in the next 5 years is pretty slim to, yeah, this is for sure going to happen potentially even within the next 12 months. Those include trail improvements, those include campground improvements, adding additional water access, renovating cabins. There's just a ton of things in here. And again, all of those are based on the public input. So to me, those are the key points, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the plan. One thing I did want to note too, actually, before I answer questions is the most beautiful thing about this plan is that if at any point the priorities of Isabella County shift, there's a very streamlined process that the DNR has in place for making amendments to this plan. So obviously it guides us for the next 5 years. If we need to make a change based on priorities, within less than a month, we can have a change to this plan on file. So don't think that by approving this plan, we're, hogtied or hamstrung into any specific required plan of action. We have the capability to make changes as we see fit into the future.
So I've been involved with these plans for a 40-year career, so I know them pretty well. And you're right, this has to be approved to be eligible for state and federal funding. And a lot of it's boilerplate, things that you can just keep passing on and on. Where the rubber hits the road is the action plan. So I took a look at that, and I do have some comments.
Okay.
And I know that, like you said, you might put it down there. When you actually apply for the grant, it may not be in the same fashion. But I looked at Coldwater, and I think I've got up on my soapbox before on this issue, but I see you're recommending 50 amp electric service in the campground. And I'm thinking that campground already is a little Detroit. You got little tiny campsites, and now you want to put 50 amps service, and that's not going to needed to serve a tent or a pop-up camper. It's these 150,000 plus motorhomes that run with the air conditioners all night, and you can overdevelop a park. That's easy to do. And where they have sometimes make accommodations for these more energy hog camping vehicles, they set aside a certain portion of a campground, which at Coldwater, it's going to be hard to do.
Well, so that actually is the plan, is this would be done in phases, and there's already kind of a desire. We've gotten feedback from a lot of campers that this is the direction they want to go. And then I agree with your statement that, yeah, we want to leave opportunity for people who are in a small pop-up camper or a tent. But the desire, the appetite from the public is definitely there to have the 50 amp service. And we just wanted to build that in to give ourselves the option to go that route.
Same thing with the sewer hookup. You don't need a sewer hookup with a tent or a pop-up camper, but you can, again, overdevelop a park, and that's a small 28 acres is the total size of that park. And the campground is probably a third of that. So, you can destroy the recreational experience. Just a caution. At Deerfield, I am glad to see the 160-acre Fisher Annex is something that you're proposing to kind of look at. And I think that acquiring that from public is important. I know we're leasing it year by year, but if that ever got lost, that would really change the character of that park. But I also want to point out, there's a school forest. Even though we have a agreement with the schools, I see that in some school districts, they give it up and it either goes back to the DNR or they want to sell it, which I don't think is legal under the law. But just to keep a conversation going with the superintendent or somebody at the school district so that if they ever decide they have no interest, that you have a chance to work with the forestry department of the DNR to see if that could be brought under the county's ownership. There's the Boy Scout property. I know there's a lot of Boy Scout properties being sold. And I think that's an opportunity too. I look at Deerfield, I know it's 600 acres, but a lot of that is the Fisher Annex, 160. There's the school property. I think that might be 80. The Scout property is not part of that, but the actual county ownership is a much smaller portion of that. But looking at trying to build on this wonderful resource base we have, it'd be better to build on it and look for opportunities on the outside because you already have a base of operation there. Even the Buckeye Estates, which is the property to the west, before I left the county, I had conversations going with that family and there was some interest at the time of looking at perhaps making it available to the county under a purchase in a grant. So there's some beautiful sections of the property that could be added. The modern bridge that crosses the Chippewa River, that used to be part of the Buckeye Estates, and that's something I kind of had worked out. So we got like 2 acres so we could put the bridge in because that was the only place that bridge could be put in without major ground modifications. Herrick Recreation Area, there you have bigger campsites, so maybe the 50 amp service, you can still direct a portion of it, but keep a portion of it more rustic. Just keep in mind that it's not a total modern campground because that bathhouse was designed and constructed undersized. So
We had talked about that at a previous board meeting. I was gonna update you on that. Our health department permitting actually lists that as a modern bathroom now. We just had to sign those again recently, and so we did take a detailed look at that. And so that is on our health department permits, that is now considered a modern
it's always been
bathhouse.
considered a modern bathhouse, but where the schedule got screwed up is how many sites are out there? 70, 75?
Yeah.
That schedule, if you look at that schedule for that number of sites, they require so many water closets, sinks, and when you compare it to what's available, it didn't fit the size of the campground. So maybe they changed the schedule and I'm not aware of it, but the campground's, the bathhouse is a modern campground, but it only serves, according to the rules, maybe 50 sites. The other 25 sites are considered rustic, are supported by the vault toilets. So maybe down the line, take a look at that. It might be something you have to maybe add another building at the other end of the campground if you want to make it all modern, but I like the idea of linkage from the rail trail to Herrick Recreation Area. I think that is essential. And I don't know who owns the property now, that ag field between the two, but there was a time some interest in looking at providing an easement. So rather than having to use the county roads that you could put, if you had an easement, you could put a trail right into Herrick Recreation Area. But so I like portions of it. Some of the others I question, but we'll see what grant you come up with.
And I just, as a reminder too, the action program are potential projects. You mentioned the potential other properties that would be critical or interesting to purchase if they ever came available. Back in the goals and objectives, where we're talking in broader language, it lists the desire to, take on more property as appropriate and as financially possible. So just because it's not on the action program, doesn't mean that it couldn't be something that we would look at doing. It's just, these were the things that got actually listed. So, but great comments. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Great knowledge there.
I'm ready to support the new 5-year plan.
Yeah, Commissioner Jelatinsky, we do have, if you want to get nostalgic, we do have rustic camping at Deerfield with no electricity and pit toilets, so don't forget that.
I guess I really feel I have to step up here. I'm so happy that we're going to sewer as much as possible out there. Being chair of the E. coli ad hoc committee, you know, we have a lot of issues with E. coli in our ponds and rivers. And I'm not saying it's coming from us, but we need to lead the way for the rest of the people who live around the lakes to do our part to keep Isabella County watershed clean.
And one additional comment. We are at Nottawa Township Special Assessment with that park location. And so by building that project into the plan, it allows us to seek funding where kind of limited funding opportunities are available elsewhere. So that was kind of an intentional placement in the plan because we know that project is looming in the future.
Yeah, and with my being on, out of township, being underneath in my district, it sends a good message that we care about the environment, care about these parks. These really set Isabella County different from other counties. Beautiful in nature and the state with what's going down the road, people don't realize, with the E. coli and the cleaning up everything, we need to be there. We need to be helping, preserve all this. Any other questions? With that being said, we'll move this to tonight's meeting. That completes the work
Thank
of
you.
the Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alexis.
Thank you. And that brings us down to, we don't have any intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. Brings us down to general public comments. Is there anyone for general public comment?
I'll make it really short and sweet. So I want to commend you guys for being fiscally conservative. I myself am very fiscally conservative, but I don't describe fiscally conservative as being not spending money. I think that means spending your dollars very wisely. I think we have to be cautious that when we're trying, because of the things we're going through, we're trying to spend our money very cautiously, that we don't just hang on to it, because when an opportunity comes your way, if you have your fist closed, you can't reach out for that opportunity. And I think that's all Tom is asking for. He's had an awesome opportunity fall in his lap. And I can tell you from the years that, 30 some years that I've been here, you don't get an applicant with 8 years of experience. That's like an unheard of thing. For someone to come in and be willing to come in to Isabella County during this trying time with what's going on here with 8 years of experience and wants to be part of our family. And he has that opportunity, but we don't want him to be able to have that opportunity or to take advantage of that opportunity. I just have a problem with that. Even though I'm a fiscally conservative person, that's my piece.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Anyone online? Don't see any hands raised. I do have a comment. I want to talk a little bit about the millage request. And I know that's on everyone's mind. And I want to just give a little, maybe a recap of how we got to where we are. And I'm gonna read off this sheet, so forgive me, but so after a lot of thought and consideration and analysis of budget models, looking at future revenues and expenses, the county leadership, consisting of 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats, came to the unanimous conclusion that we have to ask voters for a 2.5 mil increase to the property tax levy. We've been operating under the current 6.61 mil levy since 1978. So 73% of all county operating expenditures are for wages and benefits, and the county employs 256 people. Market pressures on wages and the increasing costs of healthcare have put a tremendous strain on the county's finances, and we have struggled to fill critical positions. Some departments have been chronically understaffed due to labor market conditions such as the sheriff's department, the prosecuting attorney's office, and the public defender's office, just to name a few. There's others as well that have struggled with recruitment and retainment of employees. I guess I should mention the admin office there as well. But this is our major financial concern, is wages and benefits. And I think we all understand the current climate and what's going on with wages and benefits. Another factor, replacing our aging correctional facility due to concerns about major mechanical system failures and the fact that the current facility does not meet Michigan Department of Corrections standards was absolutely necessary. A rural development loan with an interest rate of 2.125% helped with the financial impact of the construction, an industry that has seen rapid inflation in labor and supply issues since COVID. Remodeling the existing facility was not a viable option due to the building's design, which prevents clear sight lines to all the cells and does not allow the space for separating prisoners properly, and is not conducive to the work that community mental health does in that facility. Remodeling a building that needs to house 130 or more people 365 days a year is logistically not feasible. The new facility is designed to meet our current needs. It is not overbuilt. There is a room for future expansion, which we hope we don't need. Adding to the current financial pressures, the administrator talked a little bit about the asbestos problem in our administration building earlier this evening, and the need to abate the asbestos and put that building back together for the safety of our employees and the public. Last fall, we had plans to replace some aging HVAC equipment, and any work of that magnitude requires testing for asbestos, and that's when the asbestos was found. And because that asbestos was sprayed on all of the ceiling decking and needs to be soaked with water and manually scraped to remove, everything had to come out of that building, and the ceiling, the drop ceilings, and the ductwork had to be removed to get at that ceiling decking, making for an extensive job, putting everything back in and putting everything back together. The increase in wages and benefits, including our pension liability, construction of the sheriff's office correctional facility, the abatement of the admin building, and just the cost of everything have all combined to complicate our financial outlook. I live in the city of Mount Pleasant. I have for 26 years, and the city does have an excellent Department of Public Safety. Response times, I know, for police and fire calls are impressive. As a resident of the city, though, the availability of county services does affect me. The city is not an island. In fact, unless you know exactly where the boundaries are, it's hard to know if you're actually in the city or not. Go out to Walmart or Target, or Menards, and you're no longer in the city. When I pick up my granddaughter from Renaissance out on Isabella Road, I'm no longer in the city. When I go to my bank on Remus and Lincoln, I'm not in the city. Go to the movies out on Pickard Road and you're not in the city. And also, there's a lot of very large student housing complexes that are very close to, but not within the city limits. And we do have problems with all sorts of crime in and outside of the city, including those areas immediately adjacent to the boundaries of the city. And a diminished police presence in any of these areas is not going to be good for the city and will negatively impact the impression people have of the city and of CMU. So if I or someone I know had the misfortune to be in an accident or the victim of a crime or in an emergency situation anywhere in the county, I'd like to think that I could rely on a quick response. The Sheriff's Department is the only law enforcement agency that covers the entire county 24/7, 365 days a year. The Sheriff's Department also assists other agencies with search and rescue teams and dive teams. They're ready to respond to active shooter situations anywhere in the county. I have nothing but good things to say about Mount Pleasant's Public Safety Department, but we need law enforcement throughout the county. There are also other considerations for residents of the city. We need a fully staffed prosecutor's office so they can continue to work towards prosecuting violent criminals. We need a good public defender's office for those who cannot afford a lawyer. We need the courts and the drug and alcohol programs they administer for adults as well as juveniles. The public safety concerns are vital, but there are other important services which the county provides, which may be impacted, which is why this is an operational millage. If you need a passport or a marriage license or a copy of your deed or veteran services, those are county services. If you need to look up property tax information for your property or any property in the county has an excellent GIS system that is free and available to anyone. If you use MSU Extension services or participate in 4-H, those are county services. The Materials Recovery Facility provides recycling services. The county has an emergency operations center that was so critical to all agencies and residents of the county during the flood of 2017 and is ready to coordinate emergency services and maintains a staff and infrastructure to do so. The Isabella County General Fund supports in whole or in part the following departments: county administration, animal control, animal shelter, the Board of Commissioners, Central Michigan District Health Department, Community Development, Community Mental Health, the County Clerk, Drain Commissioner, Emergency Management, Equalization, Facilities, GIS, Human Rights, Information Technology, Medical Examiner Services, MSU Extension, 4-H, Prosecuting Attorney, Public Defender's Office, Recycling, Register of Deeds, Sheriff's Office, Corrections, Road Patrol, Substance Abuse Services, County Treasurer, Isabella County Trial Court, and Veterans Affairs. The passage of the proposed 2.5 mil general operating levy will ensure the continuation of these current county services. For a home valued at $100,000 with a taxable value of $50,000, the increased levy would cost the homeowner $125 annually. We don't want to raise taxes. We know people are struggling. We don't see any other way to continue to maintain services. Thank you. Any other announcements?
I can say
Yes, sir.
very well presented. I do want to kind of convey I went to the Christmas employee appreciation dinner. I'm a retiree from Clinton County. And I sat with the County Board of Commissioners. It's kind of weird because I used to report to them. But anyhow, they said, now that you're on the dark side, you can sit at our table. But we got into the conversation about our correctional facility. And when I started there almost 20 years ago, that correctional facility that they have was about brand new. It's only 2 or 3 years old. And what they told me that with that facility, only 20 years old, they're looking at replacing it. And the county's population isn't that much more than ours. I mean, we did decline a little bit, and I think they went up a little bit. So there's maybe a $10,000 difference in overall population. But they're looking at going for a millage for that particular facility. And what is the budget for it? Shows you the good timing that we had, $70 million for a facility that's probably very comparable to the one we're building. So I
Thanks.
think we've had good timing on that facility. It's a difficult time for a lot of different reasons for the county. But we've worked together as two different parties. We've worked hand in hand and I think represented the citizens well. And I think the citizens should have a voice in determining what is the level of county services they'd like to see. And I commend the commissioners to give that voice to the voters.
Okay. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll adjourn here shortly and we might even get started with the regular session by 7, maybe. Maybe a couple minutes late, but is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:49.